Good morning to you all. Today we are going to start a new chapter. This public sector budgeting. Public sector budgeting. So, as I told you earlier, the budgeting is most important part in our academic program, the syllabus, the subject, and it has three subheadings: budgeting process, perspectives, and approaches. So that is a main heading of this unit, and today's session is about public budgeting and budget process. So this one we are covering this part. So public budgeting and budget process. And our learning outcome of this chapter and of this session, upon completion of this subject, actually this chapter, right, subject chapter, the students should be able to define what is public budget, define public budget, and identify its objectives. So what are the objectives of budget, national budget, public budget, and what is the scope of public budget? Second, explain the budget cycle. It's a cyclical nature, right? It has starting point and its ending point. Again the cycle start from the point which was ended. And explain budget cycle, budget process, and models. Describe principles for sound budgeting and public financial management. I think in the today's session we can cover this point only today, right? And in the second session we will cover this point, and the third session we will cover this point. Let's start with the first learning objective. So now we define what is public budget. It's kind of basic understanding. Mark Moose in 1995 argues that public managers, who are public managers? Executives, ruling party mean what? Government, especially Minister of Finance, Cabinet, Treasury, and the officials, especially Chief Accounting Officers. Normally Chief Accounting Officer will be the secretary of the line ministries, and accounting officers mean head of the department, head of the institutions. So those people are executive finance, public finance executives. So Mark Moose 1995 argues that public managers spending public money are expected to create public value. So each rupees spent by the government from the public money should create public value, not individual, not for the particular ruling parties. The public money belongs to the citizen, general public. So each rupee spent from the treasury should create value, should add value. So when we look at budgeting process in the private sector organization, it is totally different. So what is the objective of private sector organizations? Very simple. Maximize shareholders' wealth. Maximize shareholders' wealth is the main objective of public sector financial management. Maximizing. So how can they maximize the shareholders' value? In the form of increasing earning per share and increasing return on assets, return on investment, dividend yield. So in this way they can improve. So finally it will reflect on stock market prices. But since the objective of public sector is to provide services to the general public, most of the time it's non-profit making entity. So therefore, rather than making profit, the objective is to create public value. In this process, in this budgeting process, public value creation move, here mark move, conceptualized challenges facing public finance, public managers, and call it strategic triangle. So when they prepare the budget to create public value, so they have face certain challenges. This means they have to comply with certain rules, certain things. So he has conceptualized in this way, triangle, right? He has three set of arguments to create value to the public. So the three key questions. Those questions mean, here they are mentioning the challenges the public sector managers facing, a kind of challenges when they are spending public money to create public value. So there are three questions. If the policymakers, the executives, able to answer these three questions, and it assumes that the budget is capable to create public value. So the three questions managers must answer in testing the adequacy of their vision of organizational purpose. So what is the organizational purpose? Here organization means the arrangement of public sector, organizational structure of public sector. We have discussed in the previous chapter in detail how the public fund is managed. Institutional framework. Under the institutional framework, we have discussed in a deeper manner how the public sector organizations are organized. So this, like companies, like corporations. So ABC company is a corporation, for example. So you may find they have clear organizational structure, organizational hierarchy, since they have organizational chart. Likewise, the government is a single entity. Government of Sri Lanka, or Sri Lanka, Domestic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, is a single entity. Now we see as an organization, it has a president, it has prime ministers, cabinet, right, and its parliament, and the ministers, prime ministers, finance ministers. So in this way it has been organized. So the objective, the vision is to the vision of the entity, the vision of the country is to create public wealth. Here, what are those three answers? So what are the three questions? Whether the purpose is publicly valuable. That is the question number one. Whether the purpose is publicly valuable. So whenever the government take decisions, it can be a policy decision, it can be a macroeconomic decision, or whatever the decision, they have to think, by following this policy or by implementing a particular policy, Is that add any value to the public? So that is question number one. When they prepare a budget, they have to keep in their mind the purpose is publicly valuable, whether the people accept it as a value creation. The second question, whether it will be politically and legally supported. Politically and legally supported. The said truth is what? Government has to deal with two extreme points when they are preparing budget. They have to handle two extreme points. Here, sorry. They have to deal with two extreme points. Here, the point one. Here, the first, the development of the country. Development of the country mean what? Create public value. Create public value is one point, and the politics, right? Here, assume that a government want to the ultimate, so they work hard, they are making plan to enhance or to create public value, but this policy or the strategy, the planning is not successful in case of politics, because sometimes the public, the citizens of the country will not accept, then the government will lose the political stability, political power. They will lose their goodwill among the public. So the next time, the next elections, their winning chance is questionable. So what they do is, the government should balance the political interest also. In some countries, without considering value creation, they are totally prepare budget for political motive, right? So where when the government prepare their budget with political motives, many people like their proposal, but they are fail in creating value. People are happy, but there is no value creation. So in the long term, within the short term, the political party will be in the power, but in the long term, our political party will get the power more, but the future of the country, future development of the country is questionable. So best example, we can say that in I think 1972 or 72 and 1978 in Sri Lanka. So before 1978, if my memory is correct, before 1978, former Prime Minister Srimama Bandaranaike has introduced closed economic system into a country. Closed economic system, closed economic policy, where all the products should be produced in Sri Lanka. All items, almost all items wanted to produce in Sri Lanka, and government has put rigid restriction on imports. So in that period, people are suffer much. people, Sri Lankan people were suffer much. So they don't have enough clothes, they don't have enough foods those time because of the closed economic policy. People, really, our people were suffering due to that. But their vision, those time, the Prime Minister vision is to make Sri Lanka a self-sufficient country in the long term. So in that period, there's some product. I have seen some product, radios, right? Radio made in Sri Lanka, made in Sri Lanka. I have seen, and there are some electronic items. It was made in Sri Lanka. I was surprised and I was excited. So our country was able to make product, our own product. But our people does not have patience. They are not ready to accept that kind of crisis. This kind of they don't want the long-term perspective. So therefore, our people very much hate the government those periods. And this situation was used by carefully handled by the opposition party. Post time, I think former president J.R. Jeyawardeneh, he has used that situation very very smartly. He has proposes in the election manifesto. When we come to the power, we will open our economy. We will remove the import restrictions. So many people, many people voted to bring the UNP to power. In that election, Srimava Bandaranaike lose very much, adversely lose in the election, and consequently UNP won in the parliament two-third majority, and our economy has been opened as promised. Due to that, all our Sri Lankan production has abandoned. Our Sri Lankan entrepreneurs unable to manage the competition. It's coming from abroad. And in our time, Indian army were there in the later part of 1978, 1980s. Indian army were in Sri Lanka. They were surprised. Why they are surprised? Our Sri Lankan people, watch color TV. Were used color TV in Sri Lanka, made in Japan, color TV. But Indian people does not have color TV. They have black and white TV. For the first time, Indian army has seen the color TV in Sri Lanka because we had open economy. Our people are very enjoyable, very happy. But still, we are paying for that. Our people as a Sri Lankan, we are paying for that. We were enjoyed in 1980s, 1990s, but in 2022, 2021, we are suffering. We are unable to make even single whiteboard marker. It's coming from China, made in China. Whatever the item, even pencil eraser, rubber, it's coming from China, Pencil made in China. Even white sheet we are unable to protect. White sheet. It's coming from Thailand, it's coming from Indonesia, it's coming from India. Even the bicycle we are unable to protect in our country. Because of why? Because our people don't see the long-term future, the long-term sustainability. So this is a good example. Right? In 1972, they prepared budget. They were proposed the economic policy for the purpose of purely creating public value. So our people not accept it. Our people were not accepted. In 1978, the UMP come to the power and they have proposed economic policy. All our people are happy. All our people were happy. That is totally what? A political motive. Political motive. Right? Here in that time, create public value. Here political motive. So what was happened? Former Prime Minister Srima Bandaranaike, she was proposed economic policy to create value. People are not accept it. And 1978, economy become open economy with 2/3 majority. 2/3 majority UNP come to the power. They have implemented politics motive budget pro economic policy. People are very happy. For value creating budget, people were very sad. So because of this 1978 economic policy, still we are crying a lot, we suffer a lot. Now we are crying. So Indians were also sad in 1970 at time, but they are happy. Still they're happy. In the long term also they will be happy. So they're able to produce their own items. They are self-sufficient. They don't want to depend from China, Japan, or whatever the country. So they're able to produce whatever they want in their country. But in our Sri Lankan product, in our Sri Lankan perspective, at least, so we are producing high quality, top quality rubber in our country. But a piece of razor we are importing from China. Just a rubber sponge. We use for duster sometimes we use in kitchen to clean some kind of plates, pots, right? Very shame, right? We are unable to produce at least a rubber. So you are the people, you are the future of our country. You have to change these things. We have to serve to our country. We have to give our life to make our country a better country, a good country. We have a lot of resources. We have a wonderful, right? We have wonderful resources. We have wonderful country. So we have to develop, right? So therefore, when they are preparing budget, when the government propose policy, they have to be in the middle. They have to balance creating public wealth as well as with the political motives. They have to balance, right? So we had lost a lot of things, right? So in the future, we make our country more powerful in the future. Right. The second question is what? Whether it will be politically and legally supported. The third one, it is administratively and operationally feasible. So they have to prepare feasible budget. See, this is the triangle. So ultimate objective is to create public value. Create public value. So to create public value, they have to answer three questions. These three questions. First, whether it will be politically and legally supported. Nowadays, very sad truth is recent government wanted to satisfy our people rather than creating public wealth in the long term. So we have short-term policy. Situational leadership in our country in the recent past, right? So whether it will be politically and legally supported, they are focusing much on here. So if it is a quantum, here people are here. They wanted to satisfy the people. Not they are forgetting about value creation. Right? Second one, whether it is administratively third one. The second one, whether the purpose is publicly valuable creation of wealth creation. And third one, whether it is administratively and operationally feasible. So in our country we have some sort of mistakes so that is the many economists have highlighted that the sudden implementation of the policy of organic agriculture. It's a good, really we have to appreciate the policy. It's a good, we want, as a rational people, we want that policy. We have to have healthy foods, no argument on that. The thing is, the government suddenly impose that policy to the people. So that's why many people suffering now, right? So I think, in my view, they failed to answer this question, whether it is administratively and operationally feasible. It's questionable, right? It's a questionable. You may also understand it's questionable. Now we are loss of our agriculture productions, and we have to request for US dollar, for dollar, very low countries. So it's shame, it's a shame, this kind of begging, so it's really unhealthy for us. We are getting loan over and over, again and again. So in the future, all our GDP have to pay for interest and loan repayment, really. So we need at least 10 years to recover from it. Recession, now we are under the recession, not crisis, recession. Okay, let's move. If a public budgeting entity's purpose is to create public value, then it is an expression of how public budget entity will create public value. So budget speech is a proposal. In the proposal, in the budget, the ruling party express how they are going to create value. The budget speech answers the question, how the government going to create value. The budget therefore would need to capture three elements of Mark Moore's strategic triangles. So the previous triangle called Mark Moore's. In addition to that, Bandy 2015 proposes a budget triangle as parallel to Mark Moore's strategic triangle. Here, so we want to look at another triangle. It's called Bandy budget triangle. So earlier we have discussed Mark Moore's strategic triangle. So both of them are look at the similar, almost similar perspective. Here the band is triangle. The level of income and borrowing. The level of income and borrowing. This is what? Income source, where the money comes from. So one way is tax income or other non-taxable income of the government, and if the revenue is not enough to finance the spending, they will borrow money from other countries, neighbor countries. So this determines the capacity of public budget entities. The planned expenditure and investment. The planned expenditure and investment, the second one, right? The first one is income source, the way of the money, the way of raising money. The second one, how they are going to spend the money. So expenditure is what? Recurrent expenditure, recurrent spending. Investment is a long-term investment, capital budgeting, capital expenditure. So the planned expenditure and investment. So this indicates the resources. Resources mean here the money. This indicates the resources that are to be converted into goods and services that are valued by public. For example, government providing a good education. So the government money becomes service. The government provide a good health system. Provide health with free of charge. So government change it. Government create the money as a value. And for example, government provide free textbooks to students, school students. Government provide uniform to students. It's what? The government create value by providing goods and services. So approval by the organization's highest level of governance. So when the government proposes budget, it should get approved from the higher authority, higher level of governance. That is what? Parliament. Here his budget triangle, Bandy's budget triangle. Here approval mean it's what? The political one, no? So politically it's important. That's what it should be approved in the parliament. So the budget is voted in the parliament. So it should have an approval. Second, it shows the way of raising fund for the budgeting. Third one is how the government going to create value. How the government is going to create value. Here, this is what? Strategic triangle of Mark Moore's. So the objective is create value, and according to the Bandy, his also objective is also create public value. And classical rules of budgetary theory. Classical rules of budgetary theory: utility and balanced budget, income and expenditure, balance, right? And non-hypothecation of income, gross expenditure principle, annuality, speculation. These are the classic rules of budget theory. So you can prefer by yourself rather than spending much time on here. So budget is a quantitative plan for forthcoming. It's a definition, right? It's a definition. So budget is a quantitative right? You can find figures, numbers, rupees, in terms of rupees, monetary value. The budget is a quantitative plan for a forthcoming accounting period. Its purpose is multifaceted and is intended to, number one, define an envelope of total public spending for the year ahead. So the budget defined is a basket, no, it's an envelope where you can find the money available for public spending. And the budget helps with planning and making choices among priorities. Right? The budget is a useful tool to make plan, and there are several alternatives, and the budgeting process will help to choose the best choice. Choosing the best choice. Coordinate activities of the organization or state. So the budget can help the executives to coordinate the activities, communicate objectives to the relevant people or the organization. Here the organization they are mentioning is a government, country. Monitor the performance against the plan. So based on the budget, it is easy, it is possible to measure their performance. So for example, they are planned to spend 100 billion for a particular activity, but the spending passes 100 billion and going on by 150 billion. So it's what? Here there is something going wrong. So this kind of controlling mechanism. So monitor the performance against the plan. Control activities and a budget may be used. Evaluate the performance of a department and agencies. So the budget can be useful for in several ways. The multipurposes that public budget serves generally is a legislative control of executives. The ruling party prepare the budget. And executives are those who have draft the budget, plan the budget, they are going to implement. Here, so in the constitution require that the budget should be presented in the parliament. So parliament, you can find the representatives of the public. So the budget in the parliament give. So the executives, the finance ministers or cabinet or ruling party is controlled by the parliament, legislative. So that's a parliament control. Macroeconomic stability. The finance minister should prepare a budget to make stable the macroeconomy. Macroeconomic mean what? The dollar reserves, inflation rate, interest rate, exchange rate, employability, right? This kind of things should be in a stable manner. Macroeconomic stability. Allocation to strategic priorities. Allocation to strategic priorities. Now our government give more priority for organic agriculture and organic foods, healthy foods, and also the government motivate us to make product in Sri Lanka by imposing import controls. Our government really, we have to appreciate, they are encouraging the local producers to make product in Sri Lanka. So managerial efficiency. So by the way of budget, it can no it we can evaluate the efficiency of the manager, and through effective budget it is possible to increase the efficiency of the country administration, state administration. The nature of the above purposes make budget reform on the nature of the above purposes make the budget reform on ongoing task. It is not a single activity. The improving budget has to be done one by one, step by step, right? It's not a one activity. It's an ongoing task. It's a process. So we, like in English we say, a pilgrimage more than a destination. So pilgrimage, our motive is pilgrimage. Our motive is not a destination, it's a pilgrimage. The national budget is a document. It's kind of one definition. The national budget is a document once approved by legislature. The parliament. Legislation means what? Parliament. Authorities, the government, to raise revenues, incur debt, affect expenditure in order to achieve certain goals. So the budget is a what? Simply, the budget is a document. The document is authorized by the parliament. Authorized by the parliament, where you can find so what are the source of revenue and in what ways the money is going to spend out, and also it gives authority to incur a debt, right? Debt. If the money income is not enough, the budget is authorized the government to get loan from the countries, or internally or internationally. Since the budget determines the origin and application of public financial resources, money, so the budget determines how the public money is going to be spent. It's an application of fund. It's an application of policy of the government. It plays a central role in the process of government, fulfilling economic, political, social, legal, and administrative functions. So during the period of November, mid of November, all citizens will focus on budget speech. They have much expectation on budget speech because it covers everything. Economic functions. What are the economic functions of budget? The budget is the state's financial plan. Budget is the financial plan of the country for the next year. As a tool of economic policy, budget is a tool for economic policy. The budget is the means by which the government seeks to achieve three key economic policy goals. First, physical discipline, the function, right? The function, first one, with regards to the policy. Three economic policy goals. First one, financial discipline by controlling aggregate expenditure in line with macroeconomic constraints, to keep economic growth in a target level, to keep GDP. The government should keep to increase the GDP, economic growth, and to maintain the interest rate, to maintain the inflation rate, to maintain the exchange rate. Government should concentrate on public expenditure. You might study about the Keynesian economy, In the Keynesian economy, you find the individual, household, and the side firms. Firms. So, and also in addition to that, you might studied about what government. So the government expenditure will impact the Keynesian economy, the economic cycle. So to keep the economic stable, they have to keep financial discipline. Secondly, the allocation of resources in line with government policy priorities. Second goal is what? Allocation of resources, allocation of money. So government policy is what? It's a popular example, as I all the times states, because it is in the current. What's that? The government policy is organic agriculture, organic food, safety food for all citizens. Therefore, they are not allocating fund for chemical fertilizer. The budget is not allowed. The budget has not been allocated for importation of fertilizer as well, and government also restrict imports on milk powder. We have resources. We can produce milk powder. Milk, we have fresh milk, full of nutrition, natural milk we have. Why do we want import from outside? It's a powder, right? It has it's undergoing with a lot of criticisms. So why we have good? So this kind of restrictions, it's necessary, timely necessary. But our people does not have patience. Our people does not think about in the long-term visions. Thirdly, economic efficiency. Thirdly, the efficient economic use of resources in achieving its policy goals. So these are the function of budget. Next, the political function. Earlier we have talked about economic function, and now we discuss the political function. As I told you earlier, so it has two extreme point here. Economic mean what? Value creation is one, and political motives another end. So the government policy should be in between here. So then they can balance economic and the political power. The budget process ensures the people's representation, scrutinize and approve the raising of taxes, contracting debts, and application of public fund by the government. So the budget gives the power to collect taxes. So what will happen if the government imposes more and more taxes on the public? What will happen? The price of goods will be increased in a rocket way, in the rocket speed, and our people will lose their money, and ultimately they hate the government. What they think is we want to change the government. So this is what our people think about. This is achieved through a formal separation of power. Government processes the budget, which is approved by the parliament, then executed by the government. Prepared by the government, approved by the parliament, again executed by the government. So in between here it takes some space, it gives some spaces to get suggestions from representative of the public in the parliament. Finally, the subject to monitoring and appraisal by parliament to ensure compliances. So end of the year they have to submit, the government executive people have to submit final report. So that's why we have COPA, Committee on Public Accounts, Committee on Public Enterprises, Auditor General Department. So they are answerable in the Parliament. The third, the legal function. Enactment of budget in law. So once the budget is approved by the Parliament after vote, now the budget speech become a law, become act. Enactment of budget in law by Parliament limits the power of the government, since the government may not raise taxes that have not been approved by the Parliament and may not exceed the Parliament's expenditure appropriations. So whatever the taxes, whatever the amount of loan, whatever the things which affect the government revenue should seek approval from the Parliament. The tool is budget. The budget speech comprises everything. So it will happen. So it's happening, right? It's happening. So it's a kind of democracy. The budget is the national budget is a big thing, no? Scope is very large. It's the budget can be seen as a political tool and seen as economic tool, so as seen as a legal function, but it's maintained the democracy. An auditor, usually accountable to the Parliament, scrutinizes the budget to ensure compliance with Parliament authorities. Even though the funds are managed by the government, they are answerable to the Parliament, and in between the Auditor General audit the final accounts of the government. Institution and individual managers who fail to comply, if anybody abuse the fund or they are not in line with the budget by, for instance, spending in excess of parliamentary appropriation, are accountable before the law. They will be punishable. And managerial function. The budget can be used as a management tool. The budget communicates the government policy to the public institutions by informing them how much may be spent for what purpose, thereby guiding a policy implementation. Budget clearly communicates what is the government policy, for what purposes the government allocate money. Based on this information, the managers, the executives, the head of the institution of government sector organizations can take timely decision. In some budgeting system, this function may be reinforced by inclusion of specific service performance target within the budget document. And the next part is what budget cycle. We will discuss in the next class. And any questions? Any questions? Okay, if we have no questions, we can leave meeting. Thank you very much.